This is a presentation for the London International Conference on Education. Hi, I'm Rania Al-Khayyat, and I'm here presenting a conference paper authored by myself, as well as Ms. Mahal Batanouni and Ms. Hind Sheikh. Our presentation is entitled Enhancing Blended Learning in the Egyptian Undergraduate EFL Classroom, Criteria to Select an Open Source Learning Management System. And the three of us are senior instructors and coordinators of English courses at the University of Science and Technology, Zuwail City in Egypt. The presentation will encompass the following: background and research problem, review of literature, research gap and purpose, methodology, results and discussion, conclusion, and finally, recent updates. Learning management systems started to emerge around 10 years ago as part of incorporating blended learning in different levels of education, especially higher education. Blended learning, in simple terms, implies the integration of digital tools into teaching and learning. There are now plenty of LMSs to choose from, both in commercial and open source forms. Emerging economies, in their bid to catch up, opt for open source or open access LMSs to facilitate the learning process in higher education. The uses of LMS are varied, both inside and outside the college classroom. They facilitate interaction, evaluation, and course management, among many other uses. By looking at previous literature, we will find that there are many studies that were conducted in order to evaluate the effectiveness of blended learning in college classrooms. Abu Riz, for example, conducted a study in 2015 in KSA, and he proved the effectiveness of blended learning in enhancing three different types of interaction: student-teacher, student-student, student material, and content. He also called for e-learning professional development training sessions for EFL teachers. In Indonesia, Wright, in 2017, conducted a study in order to evaluate students' perceptions of face-to-face teaching mode in comparison to online lessons. He used qualitative and quantitative open-ended questions with more attention directed at motivation and interest. In the end, Wright recommends how a skillful implementation of blended learning can boost an EFL course without forsaking the importance of face-to-face teaching. Other studies also conducted in 2017 proved through studying students' perceptions in different courses using different LMSs that students' learning experience using blended learning and LMS was actually enhanced. So, based on our literature review and our own experience, we felt that there is a need for criteria for teachers to select an open source LMS in order to enhance blended learning in financially disadvantaged countries like Egypt. Thus, our study aims to present a generic rubric to help EFL teachers in choosing an open source LMS, exemplified in two LMSs, Google Classroom and Canvas. Now let's move on to the interesting part. Let's talk about our methodology and methods. Now, first of all, this study is actually a replication of another study conducted by two Indian scholars in 2013 and presented at the IEEE conference. Using a set of criteria relevant to the needs of an engineering higher education institution, they aim to evaluate Moodle and Sakai, two open source LMSs. Our study is an exploratory case study, however, proposed the criteria of the generic rubric as a result of our own experience using both Google Classroom and Canvas for one academic year. So it is actually based on our own experience. We are the research participants, the three of us. The student participants were Egyptian EFL students at our university, and the duration was one academic year, as I mentioned before. The courses we used were English courses, specifically aiming at enhancing productive skills. Now, based on our long experience with different LMSs and previous discussions with instructors that worked with us on our courses, we settled on 5 criteria for our rubric. Number 1 is class and group management. Number 2, content management. Number 3, assessment and feedback. Number 4, communication, collaboration, and synchronization. And finally, capacity. Each item and sub-item in the criteria was evaluated using a 1 to 5 Likert scale to measure attitudes and perception. 1 being the least beneficial and 5 being the most beneficial. If we take a look at the table right here, we will find that the overall results are in favor of Canvas with an overall total score of 120 as opposed to 91 for Google Classroom. Okay, let's take a look at each criterion separately. If we take a look at the first criterion, class and group management, we will find that Canvas scored higher than Google Classroom. Taking a look at the subcategories, we'll find that creating classes and subgroups is slightly easier in Canvas than it is in Google Classroom, because creating sections on Canvas is an option, whereas creating sections on Google Classroom is not that easy. The second one is adding and removing students. Even though adding students is way easier in Google Classrooms than in Canvas, adding teachers and TAs on Canvas is easier, and we actually have the observer role in Canvas, but we do not have that in Google Classroom, so Canvas scored higher. Both of them scored well when it comes to notifications, and students and teachers get instant notifications about any updates in the course. Attendance, Google Classroom does not track attendance, whereas it is very easy to track attendance on Canvas. Finally, we have the calendar, and both of them have a classroom calendar where students can be notified with important events during the course about assignments or presentations or whatever. Okay, let's move to the second criterion, which is content management. We will find that this time Google Classroom surpassed Canvas in its simplicity and usability. Canvas's interface was complicated, 16 tabs, and required an orientation in class, while Google Classroom had only 3 tabs. Archiving was available in the 2 LMSs. However, in order to keep an archive of old assignments in Canvas, teachers had to download them on a desktop or CD. Material in both LMSs could be uploaded in any format or synced with Google Drive in Google Classroom. When it comes to arranging the materials, Canvas had options of arranging, scheduling, and posting the material as per the teacher's preferences, while Google Classroom only allowed arranging the materials such that the newly added materials were posted instantly and appeared on top in the About tab. The 2 LMSs facilitated sharing and editing documents and allowed specifying whether the students can view, edit, or comment on the shared documents. The ease of archiving and sharing class materials with the students saved time and made the materials appealing and accessible to the students. Okay, let's move on to the third criterion, assessment and feedback. And we will find again that Canvas scores higher than Google Classroom. When it comes to quizzes, there is a section for quizzes on Canvas and a variety of methods we can use in order to assign a quiz, but we can only use Google Forms when it comes to Google Classroom. We can create a question bank on Canvas, and we can use an existing question bank created by people even outside the institution, but that's not possible in Google Classroom. Grading is easier in Canvas than it is in Google Classroom. Up to the moment of writing the paper, Google Classroom did not allow teachers to use fractions, but it was easy, it is still easy on Canvas. Assigning assignments is easy in both LMSs, where we can assign instantaneously or schedule posting the assignments. Assignment submission format is varied in Canvas, but that's not the case in Google Classroom. Students can upload a document, they can fill it in with text, they can send a link, they can have no submission whatsoever if this is an assignment that requires grade, but that's not the case in Google Classroom. Deadlines and deduction policies are the same in both LMSs. Correction tools are more varied in Canvas, where the teacher can actually use voice or video or text in Canvas, but only text in Google Classroom. Canvas allows the teachers to upload a rubric and use the rubric in grading, but that's not the case in Google Classroom till now. Both LMSs facilitates linking feedback to previously taught material. Finally, in plagiarism, Canvas can be synced with a Turnitin, plagiarism detection tool, but we do not have that yet on Google Scholar. So the total for Canvas is higher than Google Classroom. Moving on to the fourth criterion, communication, collaboration, and synchronization, will show again a precedence for Canvas as opposed to Google Classroom. It is easier to conduct polls on Canvas than it is to conduct them on Google Classroom. Discussion and interaction is available in both, but it is easy, and we have a discussion section totally devoted to discussions on Canvas, but we do not have that on Google Classroom. We can only interact with the material that they have. Both give access to private messaging, but on Canvas, there is the convenience of replying to the message, and the message would be sent automatically as a message on the website, and this is not available on Google Classroom. For collaborative work, Canvas scores higher because a teacher can assign specific students to do a specific project and track their work, but this is not that available on Google Classroom. Students on Google Classroom can only work and collaborate on a Google document. Students can add material in both Google Classroom and on Canvas. Both of them are mobile friendly, but Canvas scores higher because Canvas can be synced with a variety of other applications, but this is not the case with Google Classroom, although Google Classroom is now collaborating with other applications, and it is developing itself in that area. So the total is 33 for Canvas and only 27 for Google Classroom. As for the last criterion on capacity, definitely Google Classroom will score higher because the free edition of Canvas, or the open access edition of Canvas, only allows the instructor to use 200 megabytes, whereas using Google Classroom gives unlimited access when it comes to space. So definitely Google Classroom is more convenient to use when we have a larger number of students. Actually, when we take a look at both LMSs, we will find that the two of them actually aided teachers in creating an active blended learning environment. Both of them fostered smooth, frequent communication. Both of them enabled students to go through the course content at their pace. Both of them provided individualized feedback and differentiated support. And finally, both of them encouraged students to have control of their own learning and to become more engaged and motivated. Okay, we've almost come to the end of our presentation, and I will only just talk about the limitations and recommendations. In spite of the limited number of students who use the two LMSs in this study and the researchers' hand-on experience that triggered the study, it is noteworthy to state how acting as course coordinators allowed for a wider scope of the course material, teacher, and student management. However, a survey distributed to other teachers using the LMSs would have added more insights into the results and discussion. As for the recommendations, it is recommended that EFL instructors integrate LMSs in all EFL classrooms, even in underprivileged countries. Now teachers can select the suitable LMS based on their needs. Those who seek a large capacity can make use of Google Classroom, whereas those who advocate a more sophisticated option can use Canvas. Furthermore, LMS developers are required to add more EFL-oriented options to assist any EFL instructor, especially when it comes to assessment, feedback, and communication. Now, it is worth mentioning to actually end the presentation with recent updates for Google Classroom, which were released after we had submitted our paper. The most important updates that came out after we submitted the paper included number one, a summary of student assignments that wasn't available before. It's available on Canvas, but now it is actually available on Google Classroom as well. We can now assign specific students that wasn't available before, as it was available on campus. If a teacher is no longer the class teacher for any reason, he or she can transfer the class ownership to another instructor. And now Google Classroom gives access to different Google apps while using Google Classroom itself, which facilitates class management on Google Classroom. And we have now reached the end of the presentation. On behalf of my colleagues Maha and Hind, I thank you very much for your attention.